Hey there, Lori Kennedy here, and this is the Business of Becoming podcast for entrepreneurs who want to build the business and life of their dreams all on their own terms. Whether you're into marketing, sales, online business strategy, paid advertising, technology and scaling, or personal relationships, health, wealth, mindset, raising children, and spirituality, the Business of Becoming podcast is your weekly dose of no-holds-barred conversations, inspiration, and practical training so you can up-level your business and your life all on your own terms. Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Business of Becoming podcast. This is episode number 3. This is a conversation that is so near and dear to my heart because it was our guest that really helped me to identify my gifts and superpowers that I have grounded myself in and used to help my business. Giovanni Marsico is the founder of Archangel, a community of superhero entrepreneurs that are making the world a better place through mission-driven entrepreneurship and philanthropy. Giovanni hosts his large-scale fundraiser in Toronto every September for thousands of entrepreneurs called Archangel Summit, where all of the proceeds are used to support various charities and offer microloans to entrepreneurs creating positive impact. So this conversation feels really personal, and I know that those of you tuning in are going to be able to relate to a lot of the things that Giovanni talks about. We talk about how your gifts and superpowers are different from the things that you're just good at, and how your perceived weaknesses by others could very well be the gifts and superpowers that you use to grow your business and to grow your community. And if you're interested in finding out more of the resources that Giovanni mentions and where you can find him, you can always go to our show notes at lorikennedyinc.com/podcast. Ready to dive in? Please welcome to the show, Giovanni Marsico. So I wanted to talk to Giovanni because he was the person that really helped me identify and own the fact that I am an intuitive empath. And I remember the day that I texted him. It was a Friday afternoon. I was walking into a restaurant called Milestones, and I texted him and said, I found it. I've identified my gift. And I told him what it was. And from that moment on, that was maybe 2 years ago now. From that moment on, it's been such a game changer for me in my ability to build my business. So why don't you tell everybody what I'm even talking about? It's not like a present. And then we can go from there, because this is a really, really important conversation to have.
Yeah, for sure. I believe that we are all gifted. And when I say that, I mean we have talents and things that we're born with, but we also can acquire gifts in terms of wisdom, in terms of expertise, in terms of relationships, in terms of resources. And we, entrepreneurially speaking, we can all package our gifts in a way that contributes in a positive way to the society or to the world in some impactful way. And you can literally build a profitable, scalable, big business by identifying what your gifts are. And I like to use either the word gifts or superpowers, if for context. I'm a big comic book geek. And when you do that, you can literally create a business that it thrives, that surrounds yourself with people that are aligned with who you are, what your gifts are, and build almost like a family. Like in my business, I can't use the word client. It doesn't feel good enough. We use the word family. So you can do this. It's possible. And I've seen it done many times.
So why don't we start off by differentiating gifts between things that we're really good at? Because I know that a lot of people listening are probably thinking, well, how can I make money from the things I'm really good at? But that's not necessarily what you're talking about. Am I correct?
Correct. And I was stuck in the I'm good at trap for a long time. Previous to my current business is called Archangel. Prior to that, I was in the real estate space. I was great at real estate. I was one of the best people in the industry, and I couldn't stand it. I was not aligned with what I was doing. And part of that's where the challenge is. And for me, the first step in identifying the difference between good or great and superpower or gift is emotion. So for me, your emotions are like a tuning fork or GPS to your path. And when you experience negatively charged emotions, all that is your body telling you something's not aligned here. People think of depression or anxiety as a disease or an issue. And for me, it's more of getting in tune, literally, with what your gifts are, what your superpowers are, and what your path is, and where your journey is heading. And when you start to get aligned, you start to experience positively charged emotions. And I've had very bad panic attacks, so I know what that feels like. And now I've had what I call bliss attacks, which is the exact opposite. It's like having every positive emotion funnel through you through a lightning bolt, and just it feels like intuition telling you now you're on track. And not just in the work you do, but in who you surround yourself with, all sorts of relationships, even language. You can always spot it. So for me, you have to start by trying to identify what the gifts are. And that is one way. And another awesome thing you can do is ask people who are close to you about what lights you up. So when you're in regular conversation, what topic comes up that you literally, your face lights up, your body language lights up, and you can't see it. You have to have someone externally tell you, wow, you're lit up right now.
And so can you give us an example of some of the gifts that you have? And then I'll share my experience just so people can put maybe like a tangible example to the difference between what they're good at and what their gifts are.
Right. Perfect. So I've now come to realize that one of my gifts is pattern recognition and connecting dots or connecting people. And this is a thing that I can now say, I know I'm naturally good at this, but because I'm naturally good at it, I never thought of it as a gift. It was one of those things where you just assume, well, everyone must do this because it's normal. It's like breathing. If we all breathe, we all have things in common. So this just must be a thing that everyone does. And that's, I think, part of the challenge of discovering what your gifts are. If it's innate, you just assume, well, isn't everyone like this? And it took hundreds of people banging me over the head saying, you're such a great connector. And I'd be thinking, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I know you, I know Tom, and I just connected you. And then once the paradigm shifted for me, once it sunk in that, oh, maybe I am good at this. And I actually doubled down and went deep on how to strengthen the superpower. Now it's like literally a superpower where I'm putting in the work and practice to cultivate the gift.
So how do we then transition that into something that will pay you? Because you came from the real estate world. I know your background. You were very successful. So how do you then take your superpowers? Mine is the fact that I'm an empath and that I'm intuitive, and turn those into a profitable business.
There are different models or business models that can apply. For me, what works the best and what I love the most is, instead of trying to start with a product and looking for the people that need the thing, start with the tribe first and then figuring out what their problems are and how you can use your superpowers to solve the problem. In this context, I think that's the best way. So, maybe when you start identifying what your values are, what your beliefs are, what your mission is, where you want to, or, what change you want to see, and figuring out who is aligned with you, and starting to build a tribe that way of like-minded, but more importantly, like-hearted people who want to see the same change that you want to see, who believe in what you believe, who believe in you and you believe in them, and figuring out where they are today, where they want to go, what challenges are in the middle, and then how you can use your gifts to help them bridge from where they are today to where they want to be tomorrow.
Yeah, and in my industry,
it's the easiest business model.
Yeah, and in my industry, it's interesting because I use my gifts to help other people build their brands, because I can feel their vision and I can intuit their truth through feeling. And so I can sort of regurgitate back clarity for them. And they're like, yes. So that helps me be a really solid business coach, in the sense that I can guide people. And I think for a long time, I didn't tap into that. And so now when I get what I call like a download, when I get an idea or a feeling, I will immediately say it out loud. Whereas before, like, I didn't value that as anything, because I didn't understand that that is actually my gift. When I get those ideas, when I feel the clarity for people, I used to just not say it out loud. And then there would be like this gaping hole. And so I started to understand after I recognized that, no, this is actually, like, I'm supposed to say these things out loud to give the other person what they need. And once I started to do that, my tribe grew enormously, because I started with me and understanding like what my gifts are and how I could apply them more into my business versus just, sales funnels and systems and, social media strategy, right? Like becoming more of yourself and letting that out. Was this scary for you? Like, talk to me about like fear of, not having like a business model and, backlash. You came from the real estate world. Like, how did you become so confident in the fact that this is what you're meant to do in the world?
Well, I think, and especially for anyone listening or watching that is in that flux state where, I have no idea what my gifts are or something. If you're in that zone, an easy place to even start is to know that your story is a gift. Your story is a superpower. Everything you've been through, even if it's in your eyes, if you can consider it a complete failure, it's still valuable to someone who's on the same path as you. Anything that any wisdom that you can pass on to. So imagine you're walking a path. This is your journey. You're on a yellow brick road, and you turn around to see your history, how far you've walked in your whole life. And there's people on that same path as you that are behind you. Imagine how valuable having the wisdom of whatever you've experienced can be for them, whether it's something painful or a mistake you've made or a giant success, whatever it is, you have wisdom in your story. And that's valuable up front. And to go back to your question, on top of my gifts that are, the innate ones, there's also a lot of story there. I've been doing events since I was 16, and I speak to anyone who we jam on this a lot in terms of event production, and because you have an amazing event as well. And there's so many people who are scared about producing an event. How do I fill seats? How do I, and for me, I've been doing events since I was 16. I think I've had over 200,000 people come through my events since that time. So the idea of hosting or producing an event is super easy. And that's one of the superpowers in my toolbox. Matching that with everything else, that's how you almost get unique value, because you can create hybrids of all of your gifts to make you unique. And that becomes your platform, your story, your brand, your unique selling proposition, all those kind of things put together. So it wasn't really scary. It was the scariest thing for me was not doing Archangel. Like, it was scary to think that I would continue doing real estate. And that's where all my anxiety was. And once I quit real estate and went 100% into Archangel, it was like being released from prison.
So what are some of the things that you've done to help build the Archangel tribe? Because it is a tight tribe, filled with like-minded, collaborative, supportive people who are so pumped to be honing and sharing their gifts. So what are some of the things that you've done to nurture and build that tribe?
So over time, one of the big things we've done is defining what an Archangel is, what a tribe member is, and what the avatar is of an Archangel. And it's always been a work in progress. This is a thing we'll probably never finish, but since the beginning, we wanted to make it that we're curating who is a client based on matching or being aligned to this avatar. Someone who believes in hypergrowth and they want to make a lot of money and an even bigger impact. So it's not one or the other, it's both. Someone who's super giving, has a giant heart, and wants to contribute to the rest of the tribe. So those are, there's qualifications like that match what the avatar is, and we want to make sure that we're always in alignment there. And when everyone is in alignment and they meet each other, it becomes an instant bond. It's almost like we help people become best friends by taking all the work out of curating who their friends are and creating almost a matchmaking service for friendship and for potential business relationships. And I think anyone can do that. And no matter what business you're in, there's an opportunity to build a tribe in this way. And I feel like the more digital the world gets, the more people crave human connection. And if you're the one curating that for them, there's massive value there.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, I'm laughing because I know that to be true. Like some of my closest friends and the relationships that I have come from tribes like Archangel or my original mastermind tribe, where we would be, sending an email at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. I'd be sitting on my couch like, I feel like a loser because I'm working and I'm having the best time ever by myself. And then I would immediately get emails back being like, me too, you're not alone. And so there's this comfort knowing that you've found your people, because I think when you're in the world that we're in, it often feels very lonely. And, like I like to call the outside world like the muggles. So like they, they live their life and we have a very different perspective on life. We have a very different schedule that we adhere to, very different core values and rules and visions for our life. And so when you don't have that tribe, it can often feel very isolating and very lonely. And you're right. I agree with you that if you're the person to initiate and host that and be the leader in that and give other people that safe space, there is tremendous value in that, far beyond what you'll see of like a return on investment type of thing. I get asked that all the time, what's the ROI of this? And I'm like, I don't know, happiness, like right, connection, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. And I think this is a huge point that people need to understand the value of curation and not just curating your tribe, but curating wisdom. One of the biggest things people want right now is their time back. Time is the most valuable resource that people want, more than money. And if you can save them or make them time, you become a massive resource for people, and people will trade their money for that. So if you are curating relationships for people, that's valuable. If you're curating wisdom and you become a trusted source for information, because information is abundant now. We don't need to be a content creator. To me, it's even way more valuable to be a content curator. And that's where I believe a lot of shift is happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree. And I mean, my tribe, we call ourselves the black sheep because we've always felt like the black sheep were people who, never order directly off a menu. It has to always be modified. We, bring our children sometimes different kind of snacks to birthday parties because we don't want them eating, cake and drinking Kool-Aid. And we're people who want to become, financially independent in an area that sometimes feels icky for selling our gifts, right? I get that a lot. Like, why would someone spend money on this when they can get it for free? Right. And it's, and that's exactly what you said in terms of like curation and being the person that lives and hones those gifts.
And people who drink bulletproof coffee out of a Wonder Woman mug.
That's right. Bulletproof coffee out of a Wonder Woman mug. And to that point too, when you hone your gifts and you own who you are, you're allowed, like, it frees you up from having to follow this like normal sort of boxed life where you can then be, you can express who you are. You can have full expression of self because you're with people who are literally dying to do the same. Do you agree?
That is everything, right? I mean, we grow up being taught to put on masks and fit into bubbles or boxes based on belief structures that are all bullshit and faulty, but you don't know any different. And there is another, part of me, the analogy of feeling like I was coming out of a prison was the prison was the mask of having to act a certain way, to be in a certain way that stems from how I was raised. And, all of our parents do this. They have their own stuff and they download it onto you, whether that's, religious beliefs or beliefs about society. Like for me, it was, you have to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, get your engineering degree, get all this stuff. And my parents were doing their best because that's what they were taught. And it's only, and that's part of it, but even in business, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to. Anytime you say you're supposed to, well, you almost have to attack those belief structures and figure out what is aligned for you. And, I think you'll get what I mean by this. People are attracted to people who don't have the mask. Mm-hmm. Like when you are yourself, it's such a freeing thing, but it also resonates and sends out a vibe to attract other people who are like that. And then that kind of tribe becomes the best people to surround yourself with. They become the best clients even. Speaking on a business level, you want referrals. That's how you get that connection with people because they are happy to introduce you to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're saying that, I'm like tearing up, which is my expression of like truth. So that's like the energy release because it's the hardest thing to take off the mask. This is something that most people don't talk about. The freaking amount of work that it takes for you as a person in this world of a 9-to-5 and living in the box and stuff to take off the mask and to like just be completely yourself. And for me, and I know for you too, it's a never ending, self-development journey where we're always trying to become more of ourselves by taking off the mask. And that's why building the tribe of people who are doing the same is so critical to just your general happiness and fulfillment in life and your bank account too. But as you said, that it really resonated with me because I've done a tremendous amount of work on myself to be able to take off the mask. And sometimes that means ending relationships. Sometimes that means moving. Sometimes that means quitting your job. Sometimes that means, transforming your health and your habits. And you and I have done all of those things. And it's with the intention of really just becoming more of ourselves. And it's hard.
Well, I think the biggest paradox, and this is the biggest misconception about becoming more of yourself, is that people think it's additive or it's an addition process. It's actually a subtraction process. Mm-hmm. Like people think I will be better if I acquire these skills or these relationships or this money or this house or this thing. And the more I add and layer on, I will be better. But you are actually better by taking all this shit away and just getting to the essence of who you are, right? To me, you are born with factory settings. You are born perfect. And then all of the belief structures is like getting a brand new laptop and then starting to add software. And all of a sudden you have viruses and issues and bugs and your memory's full and all these things happen. Well, with a laptop, you can just restore to factory settings. That's kind of the process you have to do with yourself. And that's part of taking off the mask, like getting rid of layers of bullshit that's piled on, that most of which didn't come from you. But you have to go through the process. And that is the work of figuring out what those masks are, what the bullshit is, what the added layers are, and just getting back to you, like who you are without the labels, without, I know a lot of people in your world are health professionals. So who are you without the title of chiropractor or naturopath? Who are you without the title of mom or dad, right? And when you get to just who you are, it's scary because most people don't even do that kind of introspective thinking.
Yeah. So what are some of the strategies or tools that you've used to take off the mask and to do the introspective thinking and to do the work? Are there like actual strategies, or it's just sitting and thinking?
Both. There are online tools like StrengthsFinder or Colby where there are assessments to figure out where your strengths lie, your innate abilities. I've done a lot of work in terms of going to events or getting coaching. I think coaching is hugely valuable. I've worked with people like Jesse Elder, Philip McKernan was a big one. I went to his Brave Soul retreat in Ireland, and it's not like a light switch where you go in one way, come out
I'm
machine
better
another
now.
way.
I'm perfect.
It's more of a, it's more of a dial, but you have to be awakened. I'll use that fun word. Awakens to what it's like the Matrix. Perfect analogy. Taking the red pill. You have to take the red pill, and then you see what the Matrix really is, and then you can start doing the change. But you have to see the programming first.
Yes.
And what triggers you, what evokes emotion of any kind, and if it's a strong charge, don't run away from it. Just figure out, well, what's going on here? Why am I so charged up? And I think that is a great place to start.
Yeah, and we'll definitely link to those because I'm a huge fan of the StrengthsFinder. Actually, funny enough, so when I did the StrengthsFinder for the first time, I am someone who is constantly like on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, and never really sitting in the success of it or whatever else you want to call that, right? And when I did the StrengthsFinder, I found out that the first strength of mine is that I'm an achiever. And it completely took a massive weight off my shoulders because for so long I felt like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I, celebrate my success and just be happy with what I have? And not to say that I'm not, but it's always this, okay, like one level higher. Now what? And when I read that I was an achiever, I was like, oh, it's my gift. Oh my gosh, it's a strength of mine, which is I'm the driver. That is my job, right? Is to continuously push forward. And so it totally helped me to shift my perspective from like, what is wrong with me to, ooh, how do I like hone this and make this, stronger and better so that I can appreciate what I have, but I'm not stuck in that moment and complacent. So we'll definitely link to the Colby and to the StrengthsFinder because I think they're immensely valuable in helping you to better understand yourself as well, for sure.
Totally. And in my origin story, back when I was a teenager, I started throwing events for teens, like dance parties. And I got lit up by event production and creating immersive experiences. I just loved it. And my parents would say, stop dreaming. That was their line. This is all fun and dandy, but make sure you get good grades, get all that stuff. And my depression started when I stopped doing events. And I was in university, and I remember that phrase, stop dreaming, get your head out of the clouds, was a big deal for me. And then fast forward 20 years, doing StrengthsFinder, my number one strength is futuristic. Like I'm an expert in dreaming. The thing that I was told to stop doing is the thing I'm great at. And now I dream and imagine for a living. And like right now we have our big Toronto September event. Mm-hmm. Last year we did it for the first time, had 1,500 people. This year we'll have 3,000, which for most event people, they're like, how are you doing this? And we're to give you some top secret info, we're already planning our 2018 event to have 6,000 people. And you can't do that without having gifts in that area of being able to think big and then strategize at that level.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think too, once you understand that that's your gift and that's your strength and that's what you're meant to put in the world, when people say to you, like you're dreaming too big, and you just say, thank you, right? Like people say to me, you're so ambitious. I'm like, I know, right? Isn't it awesome?
Yeah. I remember at our mastermind, someone mentioned that, and their line was, "Thank you for noticing."
Thank you
Right?
for
It's so good.
noticing.
Thank you for noticing.
And I want to share that with everybody because that dramatically changed a lot for me. So we were sharing our 160-second talks, and someone got up on stage, and she's a super sensitive person. And for most of her life, people were always saying in the negative, "You're so sensitive, you're so sensitive." And I've gotten the same. I mean, I've teared up in this podcast. Like, it's my natural inclination. It's the way that I function in the world. I'm an empath. And so people would always say, "You're so sensitive, you're so sensitive." And one day she realized, she turned around and she said, "Thank you for noticing." And when she said that, I like bursted into tears because for my whole life, "You're so bossy, you're so ambitious." And I was like, oh, thank you for noticing, right? Because it doesn't have to be the negative. "You're so bossy, you're so ambitious." I'm living a pretty sweet life right now because I'm so bossy, because I'm so ambitious. Thank you for noticing. Right? So I think that just, stems back to really understanding your gifts and who you are. And while the rest of the world might see it as a negative because they're programmed, they're in the box, when the mask comes off, when you step outside of the box, you realize that it's not a negative at all.
Well, I think we're all secretly dying to not be in the box. And I think that's why when people see someone who's authentic, who's aligned, they just want to be around them because they're like, how are you doing this? Please teach me. I'm so scared to step out. Like, I'm so scared to take off my mask. I wish I had the courage, but we all have that courage. It's just a matter of taking baby steps to get there.
Yeah. And I love that word courage because people always say like, "Oh, I don't have the confidence that you do." I'm like, do you think this happened before I had the courage? Like, no. Right. And we've learned that from, Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach, which I'll link to also. It's like, there are steps to building it, right? Like, first you have to make a decision, you have to decide to have courage, right? Confidence only comes after that. You can like have proof that it's okay. Right.
Right.
So, okay, so let's sum it up. So if people wanted to take off the mask and sort of find the gift, what would be the first step that you would want them to take?
I think doing a strengths finder, and then asking people close to you what they think your gifts are, what they think your strengths are, and what lights me up. Can you please be present to seeing my reactions to specific topics and starting at that point, and then just once you have something there, see how you can go deeper on those things, and then take all your current experiences up till now, all of your expertise, even if you think there's no relevance, there always is a way to take your skill set from a work environment and adapt it or align it with your gifts and create something uniquely valuable for the world that people will pay you for.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one last question is, what inspires you at this moment to hustle?
What inspires me to hustle? I think it's the phrase, "Can you imagine?" I've noticed, one of my superpowers is pattern recognition. So I've noticed this pattern where whenever I'm in a conversation with someone and they say, "Oh my God, can you imagine?" That's usually the thing that says, "Yeah, I can. I'm going to do that." Whatever that thing is, yeah, let's fucking do. Like during one of our team meetings, it was, "Can you imagine doing an event with 6,000 people?" Like, fuck yeah, let's do that. And to me, that is always the launching pad of something massive that's about to happen. I can't reveal. Well, here's what I can tell you. A week ago, we were in another team meeting saying we should have a musical performance that people actually recognize at our next summit. And then it was like, "Can you imagine?" I'm like, fuck yeah. And literally within an hour, we had the right person. And I'm sitting by my computer right now waiting for the contract to come in. So I can't really say who it is yet. But by the time people hear this podcast, they'll know who it is. And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, cool."
That is amazing. And we will also link to your Toronto event. So for those of you listening to this sort of in real time, we'll link to where you can go and grab tickets and come and hang out and be with your tribe and just feel like normal. for, a day. Feel normal.
Perfect.
You can go back out into the muggle world and deal with all of that. But for a day, you can spend some time with us and feel normal. Thank you, Giovanni. This has been such a great, inspired conversation. I always love talking to you. Where can people go to find more about you and your events?
archangelsummit.com.
Amazing. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you again soon. Have a great day. I do hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Business of Becoming podcast. As always, you can find any resources and links mentioned on the show over on the show notes available on lauriekennedyinc.com/podcast. And remember to subscribe and leave a review in iTunes. Let me know what you loved most about this episode. And again, thank you for listening to the Business of Becoming podcast.